Okay, we are recording. Hi, everybody. My name is Anthony Paradiso, and I have Clinton Shane Bradley with me, Bradley with me, sorry. I was moving things around while I was talking. So I'm just looking forward to getting looking forward to having this virtual conversation. So again, this is Clinton Shane Bradley. We're going to have our just going to go over our bios a little bit in the first few minutes. And we're going to go right into revving up for Pride. So I know we're not in Pride Month yet, but I wanted to get a little head start. It's an important month for us all, so I'm looking forward to it. Looking forward to celebrating, and we'll go from there.
We're in rally mode. This is rally mode for Pride.
Yes, exactly.
Rallying up.
Exactly. That's what we're doing. Very good. Awesome. I like that. So just a little bit about me. I'm not reading this whole thing, but I've been in HR for 15 years, and I started my own company about 2 years ago, All Things App, where it's basically my primary mission to be your full authentic self. Where so basically I'm a diversity inclusion consultant. You call me to come in, to facilitate on unconscious bias, inclusion, storytelling. I just actually did a keynote closing last week with Alabama SHRM conference via Zoom, which went very well, and I enjoyed it. I was telling my story, so I just so I basically want to just tell my story, my coming out process, what happened with me, and whatnot. And I'm also a host of boards and other volunteer committees. But again, I'm not going to bore you because I want to kind of get right into it with Clinton. But let me.
You weren't boring me, by the way.
I'm sorry.
I was drawn in. I was like, what? Yeah.
So just a little more about me too. I was raised in a working class family. Yeah, that's my nephew and niece. And my dog, Lizzie. I'm a husband, uncle, first generation college grad, gay, cisgender male, an influencer. I do have a speech impediment when I get a little nervous, so I like to throw it out there right in the beginning. I love to travel, so I'm looking forward to when I can do that again. We can start doing that now as far as going, states next to us, but we're not really ready to go. We usually go to like Europe and the Easter time, or the Caribbean during the summer. We're not really doing that yet. Maybe next year. And then I'm a certified HR professional. And again, that's my nephew and niece who we adore. My husband's in the bottom. We're somewhere, I think we're in Amsterdam a few years ago, which was really fun. And my parents up there, and my dog Lizzie, who you might hear in the background.
I'm so glad, because mine do, sorry, sometimes they
don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. And so so Clinton, how about tell me about yourself. Tell me about you, and what do you want to share with the audience?
Sure. So my name is Clinton Shane Bradley. For identity purposes, my pronouns are they, him. I would probably consider myself more from my roots, my heritage, more two-spirit, taking on both roles of what would be considered the masculine and feminine roles of just humans. So that's me, Clinton Shane Bradley. So I've been a.
Oh yeah, I'm sorry. I just wanted to say too. I didn't do my pronouns too. He, him. Sorry, I didn't do that at the beginning.
No. I think whenever we step into this space, there's sometimes like we're into the apology stop, because like I was telling you earlier, Anthony, I was just like, I feel like we're all just all at school in a big study group, learning it all together. It's not like it's not like we all had this together, but. And let's be honest, some of the training material when it comes to diversity inclusion was rather dry for the last several years. So we're just now getting new data information. So, allow us some grace and everything with it. So I've been a tenured HR professional, senior certified for 20 years, have been in the career of HR. I like to tell people I'm more like attorneys would say when we go to these conferences at SHRM and stuff, be like, I'm a reformed attorney, and they'd be a keynote. Well, I could say I am a backslidden and reformed Baptist minister, and I'm also a reformed backslidden human resources professional in the sense that I would say I'm probably a little bit disruptive when it comes to things, because I like to talk about the things that don't get talked about. I think my approach to, and I'm also, and so I work as the chief people whisperer for BSG Consulting. We do authentic talent acquisition, design from diversity sourcing, executive leadership coaching on navigating the complexities of diversities within us all, and how we try to mold this all together to make it all work in the workplace. It's complicated. It is so complicated. And so I just like to always open up the space like, listen, it's complicated. So let me, and I appreciate, and I'm always connecting with people like you, who are just these life wranglers who are looking to make a difference so that everyone can belong based on where we come from our stories. You know, you're a badass for disrupting the so-called identity that was put on you at the time, and you overcame that to be who you are today. And that's really badass. So BSG Consulting, we go into organizations to do that. I am also the host of my up and coming podcast, Human Realness Podcast. We're actually live here in my studio. We're calling it the Glam Stable with here at our studio here.
Oh, very nice.
Yeah, got our studio all set up with our microphones. And so we, this is for Human Realness. Again, having people who are just these life wranglers coming in to talk about their stories, their purpose, and then promoting that out to the world and sharing these stories, start destigmatizing all these things.
Oh, I like that. Yeah, I didn't even know until you said this, man. I didn't know you're doing a podcast.
Yeah, it just started. And so we're hoping in June, July, it'll start releasing, but we have guests coming in now. And so it's great to be setting that up. And then also, I'm a co-author of my up and coming book, Come Back Shane. And so we're fooling around with the idea of a journey to authenticity. We don't quite know for sure. We're getting some community involvement with that to see what resonates with them the most. And so kind of gives you definitely a memoir of my upbringing, my life, all the pivots that I've had to take to bring me to where I am today. So that's me all wrapped up in it. And I just love these conversations. So thank you so much. And I'm just so thrilled to be here. And I really can't thank you enough. It's just, this is a real treat.
Oh, thank you. I thank you for being here. Now, do you prefer Clinton or Shane, or what do you prefer? Clinton, Shane?
I prefer Clinton Shane.
Clinton Shane. Okay.
People call me Clinton. So Clinton Shane.
Perfect. I want to make sure I call you, what you want to be called. Yeah, so we actually, just to give the audience a little background, I've been following you for a few years, because I believe how I got connected with you was you were with, I think you were the D&I chair or D&I director of your state council for Sherman, Missouri, right?
Mm-hmm. Yes, that is.
And you're currently still in Missouri.
I'm on the Kansas side, so I'm in Kansas City, Missouri Metro. I'm on the Kansas side, but I served on I started the D&I committee on the local Kansas City chapter, Greater Kansas City chapter, and then I took over as the diversity chair for the state.
Awesome. Yeah, and that's what I currently do now. I'm currently the state chair, director, whichever you want to call it, for our state council, and it's a lot of work. So I remember again, I remember connecting, and then we spoke finally towards the latter part of last year. Mm-hmm. And then I was planning my schedule for this year for virtual conversations, and that's what I call them. I call them virtual conversations. I don't think of it as a webinar, and it's not a podcast in its true form, because a podcast is just, you don't see us, you don't see slides. Exactly. So
it's a chat. I call it a chat.
Like, we can call it a virtual chat. Actually, I didn't even think of that. Virtual chat is nice too. It's a nice ring to it. But I'm looking forward to hearing your podcast, looking forward to seeing your book. I'm actually also in the process of very beginning stage of thinking of writing a book myself, more of a children's book. Nice. I'm not sure where it's going to circle around. I don't know if it's going to circle around my coming out, or a child coming out, or a young one coming out, or maybe my stutter when I went through with that process. So I'm not sure. I guess I can do both.
That's huge. You got too the stigmatizing of the gay.
Yeah.
You got the stigmatizing of the stutter, the speech impediment.
Exactly.
That's tough. That's tough. You're a badass.
And you as well. So, and I just wanted to, some people on who are on or who will hear and afterwards recorded, that there are different gender pronouns to use. Again, it's, like Clinton Shane said before, it's people are still learning this right now. And it's okay to mess up, but it's also okay for the person to correct you. And I would recommend not being insulted. Just take it what it is. Because I was even telling Clinton Shane also that I didn't even know until my husband told me that, because my husband is a teacher, and he's in charge of the he's in charge of the Gay Straight Alliance, which is not what it's called now. It's like it's LGBTQ plus. I'm probably missing letters or whatnot, but he added someone who was I don't remember. It was I think they were they him or they he, and he asked me afterwards about that, and I didn't know that you actually can do that. And then I started Shane's pronouns. So I'm like, well, and I guess really you really can do anything. There's really no rule. You can there is no rule. So it just shows you that even us who are in the D&I space are still learning. I'm learning about all these different things, the gender pronouns, the transgender. There's just so many different things that we're learning about. So I just wanted to keep in mind and be cognizant of the pronouns and how important they really are to put, if you're in a Zoom chat or if you're in if you're in Google Meets or whatever it is you're in, to put it towards the end or reference it when you're introducing yourself. And it's just really important. Anything you want to add to that at all?
I would just add, again, I'm always saying, like, give yourself some grace. I think the conscious awareness alone that people see the need for them just resonates. I mean, think about where we were just, I would say probably just 8 years ago when I moved here from, to the Kansas City area. No one was talking about these things. I don't even think 5 years ago. And so, again, just looking back on the progress we made, yeah, we do have a lot to go, but this just resonates with just everyone having the conscious awareness that it's there. They're asking about it. There's where the impact is. They're wanting to know more about it. Your husband coming home's like, I don't understand what is like the conversations are taking place. And that's what we should be really so proud of ourselves about.
Yeah.
And so I always wanted to put that baseline down there because it's so important. But the other caveat, the other piece to this as to why these are so important to me is because I'm able to illustrate with organizations when I do my safe zone training and implementing safe design programs within organizations. I make sure I go there. Now there's a reason, there's a responsibility once you put your pronouns there. If you're an ally and advocacy, it's like are looking to respond to how they can provide those safety. I go, so don't give yourself the grace. They're important, but know that there's a responsibility to having them.
Of course, no, definitely, they're really important. And actually, I mean, because I started in the D&I space about 5 to 6 years ago. This wasn't touched upon at all. I mean, I would say that it probably didn't even start probably, and I don't want to use the person's name, but even since the Trump administration, I think it started like after the fact. So that's
good research. Find out. That might be a good thing. Kind of find out when it started.
Yeah, I guess, and also maybe why. What made it what made it start and what made it because it did happen pretty quickly. It was it didn't even take steps. It pretty much we went from here to there. It pretty much happened rapidly. So, but no. But
this is where the beauty of Google.
Are you searching right now?
Well, it's not going to say it there, but this is going to be interesting to kind of research, like what was the start of it? Ask give a call to action to the listeners, like, where did this start from?
Yeah.
Because this hasn't been going on too long.
No, it's been pretty, it's been pretty recent.
Yeah.
I also just wanted, it is, it's AAPI month, Asian American and Pacific Islander. And I just wanted to share that we are in solidarity with them. There's a lot going on with the Asian community, and I just want to make sure that they would be aware that 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 all things app myself and Shane were there in any capacity. We'll have our information to contact us in the end. But we just want to share that we're there. Actually, I'm going to be having a statement on it in probably the next few weeks. My chapter, I belong to the North Jersey Rockland Sherm chapter as well, and we're in the process. We actually finalized the statement. Now we're just kind of have to get it out there. So we're doing that. So it's just we do care, and we're here. And I just wanted to be that statement. So I usually always do this, Clinch. I always do this in my either through my own company that I work for, as I have a full-time job, and I also have my consulting firm. So either way, I kind of start this off in the beginning, mental health check, and May is mental awareness month. So I wanted to kind of close them together. I kind of do it in the beginning. I'm usually if I'm with my team and rather than getting right into things, I want to see how they're doing, especially on a Monday or a Friday, usually. Just kind of see where they are. So if you're like 5 or 10 people, if you're meeting either through Zoom or if it's in person, you kind of just go around the room and ask. And you don't have to even, if you're being asked the question of how you are, you don't have to really, you can just give the color and not even say why. Because what happens usually afterwards, for the most part, a colleague or a friend will ask you why you were that color. And then you're able to share your story and share your venting, because maybe you haven't expressed how you felt with anybody. So it does kind of help. I've been at a yellow. I'm doing okay, I guess. I'm a little bit green because a few things that are going on this week that kind of just made me a little bit just kind of down a little bit, but nothing terrible, and I'm gonna go after it and it's fine. But I'm so basically yellow, like a little smidge of green. And how about you? How are you?
You know what? I would say I'm somewhere between I'm doing great and I'm doing pretty good. Would that be kind of orangey?
Yeah, you could say orangey red. You can kind of you can go in between.
Kind of orangey red, and I would definitely say it because I like you. This time of year, for some reason, I hear from a lot of colleagues. I think the spring, whatever, they're shedding some skin about some old stuff, and so I think in some way they start revealing they're going through some pretty significant struggle on some stuff, and so especially in their work. So I feel you. I just went through that last week. So I'd say I was somewhere between the yellow and the green last week because I hate financial side of my business. You want to give me some anxiety? Throw numbers at me. But throw money at me. I'll get anxiety. And so but I had to tackle that part of my business. So I was feeling a little down, a little struggle on some stuff. And so, yeah, I like this.
Yeah, it's kind of easy because it's a color, and again, you don't have to do what you or I did as far as explain. You can always just say this is my color, and then that's it. And then later on during the day, a colleague or a friend or acquaintance may come up to you and say, "Hey, well, by the way, why were you this color?" And then it just also brings more inclusion involved because the person that's struggling maybe might feel included because someone asked them how they are after they indicated what color they are. It's just a nice way of kind of connecting with one another. And I am happy since COVID. I know there's a lot of mental health topics and discussions happening now, which is good because I think we were not discussing it much, or we were keeping it under, we were kind of sweeping it away or whatnot. But it's nice now that we're actually having that the conversation, and people are. I mean, even like even leaders now are even expressing their own challenges with their own mental health, which is huge because it starts from the top, and once the top starts expressing those vulnerabilities, then other people follow. So it's definitely a good thing.
Yeah, it's all that whole idea about I've always hated this term, but my dad used to say it, and he was an executive, and so he'd say, as far as leadership, the fish rots from the head. He would always say that, and I don't even know where he got it. But it's right. And I think a lot of times, the whole diversity and inclusion thing has always gone back to leaders. Well, it's leadership's fault. Does leadership play a part in it? Yeah. Do we play a part in it? Yeah. Everybody plays some part in it of what they can do. And leadership does lead it. but they're so compressed also against with what has happened this last year. And I think we do in so many ways need to give our leaders some grace, because I think too much of the uh, polarizing statements and things where we're almost stigmatizing leadership in some way. Those are things that aren't healthy conversations, where it's almost a blame on things. And so I think we have to give a little grace to our leaders. I really appreciate you saying that, because they are truly the majority of the ones I know,
Mhm.
they are struggling, and they are now recognizing and supporting the understanding of what of having more conscious mindfulness,
Mhm.
self-care practices, how much that means.
Yeah, and even the word empathy now is becoming such a strong word.
Mhm.
It's I mean, a year or 10 years ago, you really wouldn't you really wouldn't expect to see that being one of a characteristic you'd want to see from a leader. And now it's a strong word that's being used. People want to see their leaders having empathy for them, or having empathy for their organization, employees, and whatnot. So it's just shows you how far we have come, um, from a few years ago, and even since COVID. It's just it's amazing how far we've come, and you're all right. We do have to give our leaders. I mean, not all of them. Some leaders do deserve some
Mhm.
of their criticism, whatever situation it is that they're in, and then some leaders are really trying their best
Yeah.
to really just help out and contribute, and just kind of express or
Mhm.
embrace their vulnerabilities, which is hard. It's not easy, because we don't do that all. We haven't done that. We don't even do it personally. We would normally didn't do it with our friends, or even our loved ones. So it's a shift that we're not used to.
We're not Leaders weren't molded from like it's like we didn't teach them that vulnerability was the best possible uh way to get into being a great leader. Like it just wasn't. You can't reveal your vulnerability, you can't reveal your
Mhm.
weaknesses, things like that. And you said the word empathy. I've been astounded that I'm seeing more of the word love, and the fact that we have heart emojis on LinkedIn. I think that just ties a little more into like how people are no longer seeing this as a work-life balance of things anymore. Like it is truly work-life integration. It's in our homes, it's everywhere. And how do you not take love and carry it over into the workplace? Like it just is. So I yours is empathy. I love that word, and also love. I'm so
Yeah,
appreciative of having that word, seeing it more around on LinkedIn and stuff. So
yeah. But what better way of kind of segueing into our coming
yeah,
out slide with
I
love and
love
empathy.
this picture, by the way. Where did you
And
get this?
I don't know. I did a I think was what I do is I tend to save a lot of memes or graphics that I find, and I try to save
Yeah,
them for future use.
yeah,
And I did use this at a prior event. I don't remember which one it was, but I just like it because it's just it's just visually it's in your face, it's right there, and it kind of tells you what it's what it is. And especially now with Pride Month coming out. I mean,
yeah,
there's a lot of celebration, but there's also a lot behind that celebration, and what we have all come through. It's
yeah,
people will ask me, what how was it like coming out, or I think my kid might be a part of the community, the LGBTQ community, and they ask me what they should do, and I'm like, well, first off, that's on their terms. You can't really tell somebody what they should do. Let them figure it out themselves. That's how it is. I mean, yes, you should. Like, you could support them, and you can love them and have empathy for them, and understand them, but really let them. You can't push it. You have to kind of just let it flow. And then people don't really. Some people don't come out until the latter part of their lives, which is fine too. It's everyone's different. Everyone has their own.
yeah,
My coming out was I came out in my mid-20s. I knew, because there's different steps, as you know, Clint. There's this different steps. I mean, you first have to own it up, and admit to yourself that you are
mhm,
gay, or whichever whatever process you're going through, either if you're gender fluid, whatever it is, or if you're transgender, there's a process. You have to first admit it to yourself, and then you kind of go from there telling people who you want to tell, loved ones, family. But mine, I kind of, I knew from when I was very young, I kind of knew I was different, or I don't mean different in a bad way. I mean just I was different. And came out in my mid-20s. I came out, very slow, to my best friend, and then to my parents, and then family, and then it kind of led then it kind of led into other things. And now I'm kind of like, now I say husband and gay and LGBTQ. I say it so many times now because for a long part of my life I wasn't saying it. So I say it all the time now. I'm my wife, like, here's my husband, here's this,
Yeah.
and so it's just that's part of my story. And if you
It
don't,
take-
yeah,
sorry, it takes a bit to break the stigma.
yeah,
Because I remember driving in my car, and I think I had a Celine Dion song on or something, and I just started like, I'm gay. Like I was just screaming it just to, and I remember I was driving I was in Hawaii. I was in a relationship. But I was just like, I'm gay, I'm gay, I'm gay.
how old do you think you were roughly?
Oh, I was 31, too. But I had been living my life as a gay man, but still I wasn't, that's such a powerful statement, like being able to be used to just saying it. Because it
Yes.
takes a while to deconstruct
Oh yeah.
the conditioning that it was of the wrongness from it. So you're constantly trying, but I remember that I was like, I just got to say the word and I got to keep saying it,
No, you're right. And it's funny too, in the sense of, we're always coming out, because, even if I'm walking with, if my husband, his name is Vinny, if I'm walking with Vinny outside, if we're taking a stroll and with our dog and we don't know somebody,
right?
you reference I'm not a big fan of calling someone partner. I don't know what it is. I'm just not a big fan of it. So I reference husband.
Yeah.
So, or either way, someone would know partner, husband, they would know who that is. And so you're in essence, if you don't know who they are, and you say that, then you are in a way right there and then,
Yeah,
telling a person who you are, and there's a very possibility they may not accept that.
that's right. That's right. But what's interesting is the is how much we first, this is where that privilege and marginalization comes in. You and I, where somebody might, who comes in a privileged home, cisgender, heterosexual, all American kid, right? So they're nurtured from the beginning. It's just that nurturing from the beginning, and that's not a bad thing. We don't want to take that badness, that to be something that is wrong and shame that, because we certainly know what shame is like. But whenever you said that we're always coming out in some way, it's taken us so long to get used to just saying the word of who and what we are. And then we step into this authenticity, and then we realize, how does that authenticity perceive things? Like, how do I react now? How do I say the word gay now? Like, there's so many things that little micro things that we come out to ourselves in. That's a powerful statement. Thank you. That's awesome.
Yeah, no, yeah, I didn't, and actually, I have to give that credit to my husband too, because he's the one that actually probably, I think he said to me, we have this conversation a lot. I'm very involved politically in my town, and with the LGBTQ community. So we have these conversations, just being who we are too, being a gay couple, where we have these conversations often. And he mentioned to me a few years ago, like, if you think about it, we're always coming out. We came out to our family, friends, and all that stuff. But even still to this day, if you're in the mall, or even holding hands, I mean, it's still hard to do that in most places. I mean, I guess maybe if you're in a very progressive city, you might be able to, or but in my town, it wouldn't be. I don't think it would be. We would get looks. It wouldn't. I don't think it would be accepted. So
Same.
we do have a long we do have a long ways to go, but we are getting
Mhm.
to a good place. Or, I mean, definition of good could be, I guess could be, it could be, but could vary by different people, what good is, but we're going in the right direction. It does take time. It's very slow.
Mhm.
Um, but we're getting there. So, and like I said, they
It's
really having,
progress.
exactly, and having these conversations, having this virtual chat, and getting it out there, having it really is what it involves. And again, that takes time, because we all have
Mhm.
lives and we're busy, and so we can't always have this virtual chat going on all day
Right.
long. But we can, but we have to put the time aside to do it, and we are. So that's great. I mean, these are just a few things that have come around. I'm not sure if people that are listening may know, but there's been, I'm not going to go over it in detail, but it's just there just to kind of see where we have gone, at least recently,
Mhm.
where, in 2020 with the Supreme Court ruling, um, protecting the LGBTQ individuals from discrimination. And then now we're at the Quality Act stage, where the House passed it in 2021, and I'm not sure when it's going to go to the Senate, but it's should be happening soon. Um, and obviously, since there was a shift or a change in the administration, not that I want to go political, not that we can go, not that we're going to go into politics, but
Mhm.
since the current administration, there's been a lot of ease on the LGBTQ community, especially the transgender community. There's been a lot of ease and whatnot. So, and we have to stand by and help our transgender, community, and help them, because it's tough.
Mhm.
Yeah. So
It's hard to advocate for me, and I have done a lot. I've worked on myself a lot in this. Is like, how do I talk to this without, one, getting upset and angry uh at there. I think I talked to a friend of mine. uh she is she's in the small town Kansas, and she is transgender, and she's learning to pivot that in a small town in the Kansas
mhm.
area. And she was informing me, she's like, do you know there's like 120 laws right now trying to go through it, just marginalizing us even more. I mean,
Yeah, so
there,
that's the next. Yeah, I just go with the
yeah,
next slide too. You go right
yeah,
into it.
there's over 100. And so just all the things that are taking place to continue marginalize us. And one thing that's so interesting about the laws and stuff, and one thing is interesting about the dilemma that we find ourselves on the conversation when it comes to LGBTQ plus, is that they're like abortion. There is a moral dilemma in this conversation of LGBT, and that moral dilemma is rooted in religion. That moral dilemma is rooted in religion, in these small communities and these conservative religious groups that we know are carrying their ideas over, because now it's a freedom of religion. If they are in the workplace and somebody is in the workplace or sitting there, and Sally, apologize if anybody's name out there is Sally, and Sally's sitting there, and Sally is just offended that somebody like Clinton Shane or Anthony has a picture of their husband right there on their desk. And or Sally is upset because X organization is going to sponsor this year's AIDS walk or Pride event. And we all know human resources. If you work in HR and you're running diversity programs, you get some sort of email that says, this goes against my beliefs. And so we know those things are out there and happening all the time. And I think it's important for us to understand that in order for us to have this dialogue in our space, in this diversity, equity, inclusion, equality, and belonging space, it's hard for us to have these conversations unless we're willing to go into it and deconstruct where this religious basis comes from, because there is a moral dilemma regarding this that separates us from the conversation with skin color or ethnicity, and so, or culture. So in the sense of the conversation being like, there's so many bills back and forth because diversity, I can get that with someone of color, right? And there's no offense to this, but it is a person of color has it because they can't change that. It's who they are, right? But gay, we made this choice. And listeners and people say, well, that's not the thing. Like, if you start deconstructing where these laws come from, and if you start deconstructing how policies get set up that continue to marginalize or not even include us, it's like follow the money. Follow where this belief system is going to. Follow back to where this is flowing from. And most of the time, majority of the time, you'll find a leader, a policymaker within an organization, something has a tie to some strong religious group, affinity group, or whatever it is, and brings that in. And that bias plays a huge part, because now you've got hiring manager, leadership, you've got whoever. Now, with that bias within the organization, within policymaking, within community leadership. So how are we suspected to overcome that? Mm-hmm. And I don't say that in an angry way. I say that in a very factual way that I think no one is getting down and dirty to that particular talk of where that is stemming from. And until we can start having those conversations for us in this space, I'm worried as to how far it's going to progress, because these bills are now harming children. There are now bills that are wanting to reinstate conversion therapy, reparative therapy. So, especially in the Midwest. So we need to start having the conversation as to why no one wants to implement policies that fully include LGBTQIA+ within our communities, our organizations, and within our families.
Yeah, that's very well. I haven't even thought of it really in that kind of way. So that's really, yeah, that's, I'm actually jotting down notes as you were talking, because I want to remember this. I've always knew of it as a religious factor, but I never really thought of it of tying. I've always been the one that, I've always strived for having those conversations like we're having now, those tough conversations. But I knew religion needed to be a part of it, but I didn't know the focus of how important it would be. And you're absolutely right. A lot of people's biases or their why they're against certain causes or against certain people is because what's deep rooted in religion.
Right.
And I'm not gonna, but again, but there's also hypocrisy in religion.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. But
so,
we rest on a fringe. We rest on a fringe with people. And that's a difficult marginalization to overcome, because I think we get to a little bit in the spectrum of where we might see ourselves. I did, but I think that's an important piece for your listeners and for us to not go against religion. And that is not my purpose at all, but to understand that there is some deconstruction that needs to take place there. When an organization says, oh, we want to start including authenticity and we want to be inclusive of everyone, there are values. Well, now you have another issue. You have the issue of the other side that doesn't necessarily accept the gay lifestyle. So there's another issue. So therefore, a lot of times the conversation and language then becomes, well, and it could be a board member, a leader on that board in the decision room for that policy. And it's like, we're not ready for that. We're not ready for that. We're not ready for same-sex benefits. We're not ready for these things yet. Well, when are we ready? Until your morality is comfortable with it, until until you can come to terms of an understanding. And I think, President Obama played a huge part in the understanding of that, where he said this was not something that there was an acceptance of LGBT, but as far as the term marriage, he goes, I took it as the identify between a man and a woman. And so then he really researched, he put a lot of thought into it and said, but as a president, as a leader, what's good for the overall majority? What is it the people say? And you don't have to necessarily go to, like, there's not an like, you're not going to go to the wedding. Obama's not going to go to the wedding, maybe, but there's an understanding that everyone deserves that right in that. And no one can separate their mind from that. They still have to stay connected, because if they lose the connection of what the belief in the religion brought them to be, they're going to lose their authenticity if they accept you. It's just, it's an interesting, complex navigation for the brain.
No, it is. It's it's a lot. It is a lot, absolutely. And I'm actually going to get into the spectrum. I just went through a few slides. This one just has key terms. We're not going to go over them, but I just wanted viewers that can see it. They can look at it if they didn't know certain words, certain definitions or certain words, or they want to look it up more. By all means, but I just want to throw it out there. And now to your spectrum, because actually I had the old one before you, and you. I want to make sure that I think that's where we probably did. I know we connected before, sir, but then I saw you wrote a blog on LinkedIn with your spectrum, the one that I had previously on the slide, and then we changed it. But yeah, if you do want to get a little into how you came up with the spectrum and what it means to you and whatnot.
Sure. Well, the one you got, I know that was my rough draft. I drafted that after the movie Boy Erased came out. And I was asked to speak on a panel with it was a diversity and inclusion consortium group here. And the founder of this group said, hey, AMC Theater is going to host the showing of this, and we're going to have the group there and do an after movie showing dialogue. And I had already seen the previews on the TV a few times. I cried the first time because I was like, there's a story about this, because I am a survivor of 10 years of conversion and reparative therapy. And so I didn't know, one, I didn't want to share my story. So this leader's reaching out to me and like, it kind of felt in a way, I was like, okay, so the gay person of the diversity and inclusion group, this is what first got through my head, finally gets to have a platform to share their experience in diversity and inclusion in a panel and all this. And I have to do it on the thing that I am most scared about, which is the traumatic thing that happened to me for 10 years. And I thought, he's asked me to speak about this. This is my platform. At first I was like, that jerk, So I'm going home and I'm like trying my best to like, there's no way I can't do this. I'm crying. I'm upset. And I just started writing out something like, if I were to explain to somebody what it's like to belong for someone who is gay, because I think that's what they were trying to ask from this movie. Because the movie kind of showed people a lot of what we saw, George Floyd, everyone saw that. And there's no way I want to be like that. And we all reached out to our Black friends and colleagues, like, I'm not like that. I want to help. And it felt in the same way when Boy Erased came out, and then people started to realize that you went through that. They were like, oh my gosh, it's like, it's fine. Like I'm good. And so this helped me provide a framework of how I could say in the most eloquent way what it feels like on this kind of the spectrum of where we reside in inclusion. Because we're not.
And is it a step? So like, are you starting with rejection and then saved? And
yes. So and everybody's like, why? And everybody's like, well, why did you start from the top and go down? I go, I just did it that way. I don't know. It's just, and so we're all trying to get to a space. I know it's separate when you see Maslow's hierarchy of belonging. It's opposite. But I think rejected is at the top because I want people to, I want them to see that first. Because I think it's important to see in allyship and advocacy that it's typically, the rejection phase is typically conditioned from a religious doctrine, like we talked about. You know, we're a moral issue. They're the individuals that say, you know, gays ought to be shipped off to a deserted island and blow it up. Those are things that are said. Like, we know that there is severe homophobia out there and transphobia. So we should be discarded, just rejected. Then we have the idea of people that might resonate with, like, well, yes, discard them, that's an option, but they can be saved. They can be saved. So that kind of incorporates this dangerous and really fundamental belief that the group member, so we're going to be able to be cured from our sexual immorality. So there you have the reparative therapies over generations. You have conversion therapy. You have organizations and groups and even families and communities that don't educate and try to just stifle that development for someone to be their authentic selves, and so they can be saved. And then we get into just the denied. So somebody who maybe didn't quite cross over into the saved, they weren't quite there, so they're just denied, really, not rejected, not discarded, but just denied, ignored. Like, mean girl on the playground, just doesn't even want to have anything to do with you, and no reason, she just don't like you. Okay, so stay in the closet. You're denied. We do acknowledge your human existence. You can have health benefits. You can have decent pay, but don't try asking for anything more. You're just denied.
Mm-hmm.
And so then we have this tolerated. So tolerated is kind of like a fringe space in this moral dilemma. So we're out of the closet, but we're not quite seated at the table. So again, it's that spectrum where that CEO, you follow where the belief system is, and you kind of find out where that leader's influence is on that policy. And so we're out of the closet. They acknowledge it. They see us kind of in society. It's a little annoying, but we just tolerate it. Right.
Mm-hmm.
And then we have accepted. So we have individuals that accept us, like, awareness of moral, there's an awareness of a moral conditioning. And that's like, kind of like with maybe your husband might have said, like, I don't know, they, he, there's a whole different language with that you and I and our generation has come to terms with the genderqueer generation, and like, what are some of the terms? So they're teaching us things. And so him being able to be, so accepted is his conscious awareness and educating and trying to grow in it, right? And then the final stage where we're trying to be is just full inclusion. Like, we have seat at the table. There's no question as to whether or not we can be here in this organization, at this family dinner table, in this community, in this organization. It's like, we're here, and there's a texture that we can be here, because being included is belonging, and that has a texture. And so I always want to tell people, like, this isn't how I think you should look at people and say, oh, you reject them, you have to, but I think there's a spectrum here that helps me illustrate for people when I navigate these conversations where they may be. Now, I don't use it to attack, but I'll use it so that I can understand how to navigate the conversation, because a diversity and inclusion conversation for LGBT plus is a difficult one. It's not an easy one.
No, absolutely. It's not. It is a hard one. And this is and this graphic or illustration that you provided is great, and it's a great tool. So thank you for sharing it, and it's just a great tool to have, and as many tools as we can have really for our community is great. So this is really, really good. Again, thank you.
Yeah.
We are kind of getting close to the top of the hour, so I don't want to be
Oh, wow.
rude, or but it goes fun when you're having
It
fun.
does. We're having a good talk.
And just a few things I just wanted to kind of go into also with our youth. We've mentioned it. They're going through a lot, and it was interesting. And I was telling a story yesterday. I'm not even sure who told me the story, but how we hear a lot of the, generationally speaking, a lot of times we hear people that were going to school in the 50s and 60s and how they used to have to walk like 5 miles Well, it probably wasn't even 5 miles. It probably was a half a mile, but still, they had to walk or run because they were late to school or in the snow
Uh,
and all that. And yes, kids now, you get people, kids or youth are not doing that. Most of them, they're right by their school. There's a bus. I mean, again, there are still a lot of issues with poverty going on still that kids may have to go through
mhm,
tough times to get to school.
yeah.
But for the most part, I would say it's different than it was 50 years ago. But kids now also have to worry about getting shot or guns.
Mhm,
Um, so I don't. I feel that we're really. I hear often that our youth isn't. They're not going through. They can't handle tough things, or a lot of people also say that we're in trouble with our current youth, and I feel the opposite. I'm looking forward to seeing our youth take
thank
over
you.
and become leaders, and they're going through a lot too. I mean, they're going to school with with every day there's stories about a shooting at a high school, middle school, elementary school, or in a movie theater or outside in New York
Mhm,
City. It's tough, and so
it's tough.
I want the youth to realize that that we're there for them.
Yeah.
Our community especially is there for them. I mean, the numbers. I mean, with this shows,
Mhm,
61%
mhm,
of the youth, and they consider youth here under 25 in the United States who experience LGBTQ based discrimination in the workplace by gender identity. Transgender 61%, which is not a surprise. Non-binary youth 50%, and then cisgender LGBTQ youth is 28%, which is still, I mean, it's still hard to believe that even with the cisgender, you're still having 28%. Um, and so the numbers they're not shocking at all. But it's just, again, like I said from the very beginning, or I think you said too, we've gone a long ways, but we also have a long ways to go.
mhm,
And I really can't express the importance of having these conversations and
mhm,
just educating people on what trend what I mean. I'll even admit too, I didn't understand the transgender topic until I went to actually a D&I conference, probably right after I got into the D&I space, 4 years ago or so. I went to a D&I conference, and I saw a transgender person spoke, and that's when I finally realized
mhm,
what it was to go through. I understood it in the sense of, I mean, I don't live it because I don't have a personal experience, but I the stories that she told, because she transitioned from him to her. So the stories that she told and her presentation was just so powerful and moving to me that I realized what it is. So even when you're in the LGBTQ community, you still sometimes don't even understand what the other people are going through in your own community. So you can imagine what people that aren't even in that community, what they going through as far as not understanding it. So again, it's educating. It's kind of just going over the gender pronouns, going what transgender is,
mhm.
what it really is, like what binary or non-binary is, and we can't be ignored because we're in a society now where this is happening.
Yeah.
So we need to learn more about it. So the more we learn, the learning more, I think the more acceptance there will be, and less less discrimination, and seeing these numbers come down, because it's tough. It's definitely tough for kids right now.
Mhm. I greatly appreciate you saying that. They are. They're. I have a 8-year-old daughter. I'm a donor dad, and
Okay,
she
yeah.
lives with her mom's in California. And she is the biggest inspiration that I have because of the number one question that I would always ask myself: why do I do what I do? And I would think, what if I'm going to go out and create a space, an organization, and create a policy? Would they accept somebody like her? And when I looked at so many, I was like, I'm not sure they would, because, are they going to accept the fact that she has two moms, these things? Does she go and like, we're, all these identities? And these kids are going to teach us how we create a world that is more belonging, for
No,
them.
absolutely. Yeah, no, you are. And that goes, not this slide, but goes into, because you mentioned mommies. So I have a slide on that because I didn't even see it myself, being that it was Mother's Day. But this is just an illustration, that being kind is great, but it's also, you have to be an ally. An ally goes beyond being kind. It's being anti-racist, anti-sexist, anti-homophobic, anti-transphobic, the list can go on, but and kindness, without action is meaningless. It's, again, you could be kind, you could be the kindest person in the world, but if you really aren't, if you're not an ally, you're not walking the talk, you're not walking the talk, then really you're not so kind, really. I mean, you might be kind on the outside, but really you're not helping. So I just wanted to, I saw this picture a few days ago. I liked it.
I do. I do. I like it. No, I like it. I always say, I don't like the word kind crossed out. I understand the purpose, the point. I understand the meaning behind it for sure. And I understand kindness without action is meaningless, because it was Brene Brown said, I'm not as nice or sweet as I used to be, but I'm a hell of a lot more kind because of her vulnerability. And I think the kindness is still very important, because
of course,
because once kindness is no longer in any of the dialogues of any of these, then you got to walk away from the situation. If kindness has left the building, then you're just looking to get into a fight. And I think that's what oftentimes, and there's a good thing for healthy dialogue and debate for sure. But I also see things on LinkedIn and people doing things where it's just like any small thing that they look at to call out somebody anti-racist or anti-sexist or homo, like they're just going to do it, call them out. And I'm like, well, that's no longer kind.
Yeah, you definitely need to have respect, and you need to be cordial and friendly, and now that, and I'm not saying don't be kind.
No. That thought, and I love the word kindness and with respectful dialogue. I don't think someone said, what is not decent dialogue, but proper dialogue? No. What is kind and respectful dialogue?
No, we don't endorse on here not being kind. We do want you to be kind, but also going a little more and above that.
But have some action with it.
Exactly. And then I thought this was, I didn't even realize it myself. But remember that there are, mommies out there, and remember the apostrophe that, usually we're so used to doing the apostrophe S that cute. That it's not always the case. It's now, you put the S apostrophe. So I've been kind of doing that.
Can you send that to me, please?
Yeah, I'll send it to you.
That to my daughter's mommy's
mom. I'll send it to you right afterwards. I'm actually getting there because we're right at the end.
Okay.
What I'm going to do is I actually have your other email address. So I'll email it there. But if you want, why don't you just tell the audience how they can reach you?
Yeah. So Clinton Shane Bradley, just go to hello@bsgconsulting.org, or go to our website, www.bsgconsulting.org. My Twitter is @ClintonShaneKC. There's my LinkedIn, Clinton Shane, and then I have my Instagram that's out there on Clinton Shane Bradley as well. Just follow me, tune in. We do our human realness podcast coming up. I do a Wednesday, a get after a little talk in the morning, and then I do a Friday see the good through it. And so all kinds of really good stuff. Stay tuned for what we have coming up with my book. And then looking forward to that. It'll be fun announcements with that. And then if any of your listeners are looking for some information and curious about being a guest on the podcast, just go to hello@bsgconsulting.org or send an email and tell us your story so we can connect and talk and start saving some lives and impacting some lives out there.
I'm sorry, I forget the it's hello at bsgconsulting.org. Okay, I may have copied and maybe I didn't do the whole thing. But
even if they go to the website, they'll say it.
Yeah. Perfect. And then just again, most important, be you, be your authentic self. I'm actually wearing it on. I got this in Canada.
I just poured water. I just poured water down my neck from.
Oh, sorry.
What do you got? Stand up. What is it?
It says "Happy being me."
I love it.
I got that in Canada a year or two ago. So I wanted to just, that's why I'm wearing it now.
I
But I
love
wanted
it.
to show the audience. So again, just be your authentic self.
Yeah.
These are, this is how you can contact me, aparadiso@live.com. I'm on Instagram, Twitter, all things app is both. So it's ALLTHINGZAP. And then my website, www. I think I added W by accident, allthingsapp.com. So I want to thank Quentin and Shane for being on. I'm actually going to, just one second.
I thought you were going to say you were going to go to dinner.
I just actually, look, I'm gonna stop recording actually, just one second. Let me just stop recording. Again, thank you all. I just gotta figure out how to stop recording.
Happy
Sorry.
Pride.